and I'll be dreaming and thinking like, oh, my teeth are falling out, or it's like my teeth are becoming loose. So it's as if I would brush my teeth the next day and then my front tooth would become loose and fall out. And I'm like, ah, ah, no, this is like my worst nightmare. I don't want this to happen. My teeth aren't the best. They're a little bit crooked, but still, imagine losing one of your two front teeth. And this happens on a regular basis. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, everybody, to another British English conversation with me and my mum. And you might be able to see that it looks pretty bright and sunny, both here in Brussels and over there back in West Yorkshire. So, mum, is it a nice sunny day over there?
Hello, everyone. Yes, it's absolutely beautiful. It's spring-like, the sun is shining. I'm got in pink for, the season. Yes, it's a lovely day. I'm feeling better. I've been full of cold, streaming eyes. So everything's looking good. I could be tempting fate when I say this. It might suddenly start to rain. I'll get another cold, but yeah, it's lovely. It's a beautiful day.
Well, hopefully you don't tempt fate. And if you tempt fate, it's like you say something positive, maybe optimistic, and then typically something bad would happen after. It's like Murphy's Law, right? If anything bad could happen, it will happen. So hopefully you're not tempting fate. But let's get started because we've got a kind of continuation of what we did a few weeks ago when we were chatting about different simple questions using comparatives. And we thought, well, we might as well continue with something similar with like 15 different conversation questions, each using a superlative. So, Mum, you've done your homework, right? You've been preparing.
I just didn't want to be caught out if you asked me something and my mind would just go blank. So I have a rough idea of what you're going to ask me, but I'll just blag it. If not, I'll just be off the cuff and just answer whatever springs to mind.
Fantastic. And of course, as you use natural advanced words and phrases, I'll do my best to explain them as well. So, Mum said that she'll just blag it. If you blag something, it's kind of like you wing it, you play it by ear. You do something, adapting and improvising without having pre prepared it. And she also said that I'll be speaking off the cuff. And if you do something off the cuff, you do it in the moment without having prepared it in advance. So, fingers crossed, it goes well. So, Mum, the first question I'm going to ask you, I'm just going to share my screen briefly so then people can see which questions I'm asking my mum and which ones she will be asking me. So, the first one is a nice, beautiful one. So, Mum, what's the most beautiful place you've ever been to, and why was it so beautiful?
Well, to be honest, our holidays now seem to be based on where you are. So obviously, you went to the University of Liverpool, you got your degree, you did the Spanish and the Italian. So we have been to Spain and Italy quite a lot. So Palermo in Sicily was lovely, but my favourite has to be Seville. And the most beautiful place, if you haven't been, it's the cathedral. It's gorgeous inside, but you can actually walk up the tower as well. And I hate heights. So, this was something that I don't know. I was undecided whether to do it, but it's a wonderful structure. It's solid at the top, and you can see the whole city. And that's just the most beautiful place I've ever been to. But we also live near the Yorkshire Dales, so sometimes you don't have to go somewhere special. You don't have to go a long way. You can just find beauty in nature or just nearby to where, if you're lucky enough to live somewhere close to the countryside.
And I concur with you absolutely that Seville is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. I know we have some people from Spain listening, and I'm sure they'll be happy, like, come on, yes, Spain, Sevilla. And it is gorgeous. It's jaw-droppingly beautiful. And it's strange because usually most people associate beauty with the beach and oceans. And Seville, I mean, it has a beautiful river, but it doesn't have the beach. It's, if you ask me, the only downside about Seville. If only it had a beach just 10 minutes away, then I'd be like saying, all right, it's perfect. It's unbeatable. But no, it doesn't have one, unfortunately. And continuing with the same kind of topic, what's the best holiday you've ever been on? The best holiday you've ever had?
We've had lots of lovely holidays, but I am quite sentimental. So I would say that the best holidays are going back years and years when you and your sister that you were just small children, and there was just something about just simple holidays then. And obviously, your little cousin came along as well. Obviously, there's an age gap, and it was somewhere called Primrose Valley near Filey. It was actually a caravan holiday, so we were all packed in. Those grandparents, auntie, uncle, cousin. I think it was because we were all together. I mean, ironically, we do still go, not in a caravan. We're too big for that, and we've got a bit more choosy. We like a bit more luxury and space and more amenities. But they were the best memories. Yeah, just that innocence of childhood,
Mm,
and
perfect.
I enjoyed it too.
No, I mean, in my case, I'll always cherish these moments and really adore spending time with grandparents, auntie, uncle, little cousin. And we'd always go and we'd stay in this very small caravan. So we'd all be kind of sleeping on the sofas, at least the kids would be sleeping on the sofas. But that's what made it memorable and what made it cool because when
Mm.
all the grown ups went to bed, that'd be when we'd maybe play cards or we'd be having a look at the neighbors to see what they'd be doing. It was when we had our little moment of mischief and maybe even calling a random number and saying, hello, I am your mum. So we
Oh,
would prank call people when we were very, very young. And that's what made it, I think, memorable.
yes. I thought you were having midnight feasts, but we're all very innocent as well.
We were just kids. We were having a good time. And that's why it's very memorable. And, times have changed. We don't want to be staying on the sofa, sleeping over until late at night. But you look back on these things and think, oh, what a time. What a lovely moment. You see, I'd also add to that my best holidays have been when I've been traveling around in far places, going on big adventures. And I remember because I was speaking to a student from Brazil earlier when I went to Iguazu, which is one of the seven wonders of the world. And it's a bunch of waterfalls on the border between Brazil and Argentina and Paraguay. And this was whilst I was still at university. And because everything was so strange, alien, foreign, and different, it made it so exciting. So that's why maybe my time traveling around South America, Argentina, and Brazil, that was when I was like, oh, this is amazing. But for completely different reasons to why I also loved my holidays with the family and staying in a caravan. Completely different reasons. Awesome. And now we've spoken about our best holidays. So let's move on to our worst. Mum, can you think of any bad trips that you've been on?
Well, I can, and it was actually well, we have been on some not great holidays, your dad and I, but the worst one, unfortunately, was our honeymoon. And that was because we got married in September. And bear in mind, this was before the internet. So you couldn't look at all the pictures online. So you just sent off and you got a brochure, a sort of a leaflet. And I should have known when it was a drawing, it was a sketch of a hotel. So that should have raised alarm bells rather than a photograph. So when we turned up, it was scruffy, it was next to a busy road. Um, I think they'd virtually closed for the holiday season. So we were the only people staying there. When we went for breakfast in the morning, there was literally our table, one waiter. The chairs were on all the other tables, and there was dust sheets. It was just crazy, but it got better because
Dad.
yeah, it couldn't have got much worse. But because the room was scruffy, the drawers, the cupboards, everything was falling apart. The wardrobe. So we actually then drove around and found a really, really posh hotel. The only thing is, we could then only afford to stay 2 more nights instead of the full week. So it was a short honeymoon. It started off badly, but it got way better.
Quite. So,
Uh,
I mean, this
but,
is not a good sign that your worst trip was your honeymoon.
but we have been married over 40 years now, so something went right.
It didn't end the marriage, at least. Thank God for that. Thank God for that.
You wouldn't be here.
And you said it was scruffy. So the place you stayed in was very scruffy. And scruffy is a nice adjective, which means like a bit messy, a bit dirty. It's kind of the opposite of somewhere that's tidy, it's posh, it's nice. So yeah, you stayed in a scruffy hotel. It's kind of like a dodgy place.
Um,
All right, cool. Now, Mum, could you ask me the next question? I don't know if you've got any notes over there, or
what's the question,
it
please?
is about the most interesting person you've ever met.
Okay. Lewis, who is the most interesting person you've ever met?
Well, I'm not sure because interesting could be interpreted in different ways. Because often British people, we will say, that's interesting. And we will like pause and hesitate when usually what you're meaning when you say that someone or something is interesting is saying that it's a bit strange or it's a bit unusual. So I've met many very interesting or unusual people, but I think they are interesting for good reasons as well, because you can learn from these people. So there are many people who are great storytellers and they tell amazing stories. And that would therefore be a very interesting person. Like Grandad, for example, was very interesting because he was a great storyteller. But then there are other people, like, for example, one of my students is a football manager and he's Spanish and has managed in different countries at a high level. And I love having classes with him because I get to find out all of these interesting things and stories about places he's been, people he's met. And then, of course, there are interesting people who are just a little bit weird. And Mum, how about you? Can you think of any very interesting people that you've met?
Well, I haven't really met anybody famous as such. Um, Interesting for me, like you say, is how do you define interesting? I worked with somebody when I worked at British Telecom years and years ago, and she had travelled everywhere. They'd no children, so their whole life, as they just booked holiday after holiday, and the things she could tell you was marvelous. It was lovely, but after a while, it's that's just second hand to me. So sometimes I had a teacher of English literature, and she was very well read, so she could debate things. So she was interesting. She could, discuss things. So that made her an interesting person. Me, not so much.
I think you're an interesting person, of course. Back yourself. All right, moving swiftly on to the fifth question. And of course, now we got to focus a little bit on food. So we'll start with what's the tastiest meal you've ever eaten? And in my case, the tastiest meal I've ever eaten, I can't quite put my finger on it. I can't quite say exactly one meal that was the tastiest I've ever eaten. But every time I do go back to um, my fiance's house back in Seville and back in Cadiz by the beach, we always go to the same places because we know that there is a particular dish with octopus that is, absolutely to die for. And that there's another place with these really cheap, affordable, but delicious tapas. And we could have it over and over again. We could have it on repeat. So whether it's the tastiest I've ever eaten, I'm not sure, but it never lets me down. It always satisfies me. I love octopus, but I feel a little bit guilty sometimes eating octopus because, it's supposed to be a very, very intelligent animal, but it's so tasty. Mum, how about you? What's the tastiest meal you've ever eaten?
I think it was when we went to Australia. We went to somewhere called Noosa, which was obviously on the coast. So that was a beachside restaurant. And again, I had fish. And bearing in mind that for many years I was vegetarian, it was quite unusual for me to have. Well, it's pescatarian, isn't it? If you have fish, so it was unusual, but it was just so good because it was fresh. It was, you could see the waves just sort of lapping gently. And so that was lovely. Yeah, it's really, really nice. The only thing is because obviously I was vegetarian, I'm not now, but I was vegetarian. So I did just struggle with the fact that it was like the whole fish, the, the eye, the tail. So that was slightly, but it was delicious. Yes.
And despite that, now you're saying it's the tastiest meal you've ever had. So it didn't put you off too much, you know?
Just a lettuce leaf over the eye.
Just cover it, Out of sight, out of mind, which is a lovely expression, which means if you don't see something, then let's say you don't worry about it. It's out of sight, out of mind. And another question related to food. What's the most unusual dish that you've ever tried?
Well, I can ask you this as well, but basically, we went to a friend's and she's a very, very good cook. But I think she was in an experimental phase and we had venison, sort of deer, and it was in a chili sauce, but there was dark chocolate in it.
Hmm.
I would describe that as interesting.
Yeah, yeah, very.
It was it was unusual and it was really nice to try it, but I won't be cooking it anytime soon. But it was so lovely because it's nice. Sometimes I'm just a little bit too safe, so I don't take chances and I'll make the same thing. So it's actually nice to go somewhere where somebody will cook something and you might love it. You might not love it, but if you don't try it, so yes, that was unusual. I'm not sure meat and chocolate are my thing. No, but
No, it doesn't seem to add up, if you ask me. They don't seem to go hand in hand and to go together. But, I mean, chocolate's always tasty. Venison is usually tasty. So,
mm,
separately, perfect. Mixing them, mm, not convinced. It's interesting. Okay. And how about we move on to something different other than food and related to films? And Mum, I know you're not really a big movie buff, are you? You don't
mm.
tend to watch that many films, do you?
I don't really. I think this is a question I'm probably batting back to you. I'll hand this over to you because I just I, I love to go to concerts, so it's not like I don't like to be surrounded by people. But if I'm watching a film, usually maybe I'm just lazy and I just watch it at home. When it comes on, when it's been out a while. I think that one of the last ones I went to, and as an adult, and I think it was The Lion King, and it was computerized, and I cried. Well, who wants to do that in public? So, Lewis, this one's for you.
Okay. Well, the question is, what's the best film you've seen this year? And we're recording this the first week of March, so I doubt we've watched that many films. I'm trying to think which films I've watched this year. And, well, one that I watched last Sunday, it was called Los Domingos. which is Sundays.
Mm.
And it was actually one of the most highly rated and most awarded films in the Goyas. And the Goyas is the Spanish equivalent of the Oscars or the BAFTAs in the UK, which is essentially an awards ceremony for the best films that were released last year, 2025. So we decided to watch this film, Los Domingos, Sundays, and I didn't really know what I was getting myself in for. I didn't read anything about it before choosing to watch it. And then quickly it became apparent that the film was about a girl who had had a bit of a traumatic life as a child, and she was being taken care of by her aunt and her grandma. Her dad wasn't really paying that much attention to her, and she had become very, very religious. And she wanted to become a nun. So it was about the family situation of adapting to her decision to become a nun, which must be quite a shock for many people, thinking that you've got different ambitions for your daughter to maybe go to university or to have a family. So it was essentially about the decision and turmoil of this family throughout this big life change of signing up to go and live in a convent and not speak and not have a phone with her. So I got a little bit bored. I'm not going to lie. So it wasn't exactly my cup of tea. I could maybe see that it was interesting and I could see why other people liked it. But I think a lot of the time there are films that film critics love and they really appreciate the acting and the script and the dialogues. But then maybe the average viewer wouldn't be such a big fan of. And I class myself as an average viewer. And I was watching it, and there were times when I was grabbing my phone and checking the football, or grabbing my phone and going on Instagram. So for some people, it might be the best film of the year. For me, meh, it was a bit boring.
Horses, each to their own,
But
and it
good.
don't all like the same things.
Everybody's different, of course, each to their own. Now, a question for you, Mum. Who is the funniest person you know?
Well, I think probably your cousin as a child. I think children are naturally quite funny anyway because they've no filter. They just say it as it is. And he just used to be so funny. The expressions he would come out with. He spent a lot of time with his granddad, my father. So he would use some expressions which were a little bit old fashioned, but he's still now, even though he's an adult, he's a really funny guy, and he's just yeah, he's lovely. Yeah, not
Right.
jokes. I mean, my dad, he was just like telling jokes the whole time. He'd love a punchline, and my mum was always just be like, "Oh, Arnie, not another joke." He would even if we went to the supermarket, he would tell jokes to the lady on the checkout, and mum would just be so embarrassed. But so he was funny in a different way. So perhaps, his grandson took after him, but he's
Right.
just actually funny. He's good with the comeback, the one-liners.
Perfect. And you used a nice phrasal verb there, which is that maybe my cousin has taken after my granddad. And to take after someone is to be similar to them when speaking about your parents or your grandparents. So I think I have taken after my mum and my dad. And you also mentioned a punchline. And the punchline is the final part of a joke when hopefully, all being well, everybody will start laughing. And that's how you'll know if the joke landed or not, if it has a good punchline. All right, let's not speak more about films because I've already mentioned that relatively boring film that I watched. And let's skip to the most talkative person in your family. Hmm, the chattiest person in your family. I would say that I'm definitely not the most talkative person in my family. I'm not the chattiest person in my family, which is strange because, of course, I speak almost for a living. But then when I'm chilled out, relaxing at home, I can be quite quiet and reserved, and I keep myself to myself. Mum, I'd say you're quite a talkative person. Can you think of anyone else who might be more talkative than you?
Um, yes, I absolutely can, and that's your nephew. That's our my 2-year-old grandson because he's at the age where he's got a lot of vocabulary, especially. I mean, maybe we're biased. We think he's very clever because he's talking all the time and he's asking why and what, and that's obviously how they learn. And he literally, when we look after him 2 days a week, when he goes home, we've had a wonderful time. But I'm a bit like you. Then I'm all talked out because I've literally been answering questions all day long and thoroughly enjoyed it. But he literally just talk, 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 talk. So once he's gone, it was just like, "Oh," but yeah, it's great. It's great. It's a lovely age. Yeah.
Exactly. A very chatty age as well, a very talkative age. Perfect. All right. Now, you were telling me before we started recording, and I was quite shocked because you were mentioning the strictest teacher you ever had. So, who is this guy? Tell us about your strictest teacher ever.
To be honest, Lewis, it wouldn't happen now. But bear in mind that I was born in the 60s. So in the 70s, teachers really could more or less do anything they wanted. And we had a lovely boy. And I think I'd be about 9 because Mr. Little, he was called. But obviously, when he was 9, everybody seems huge. So he didn't seem little at all. And he was broad. And he had a thing about grammar and manners. And one of the young boys asked him if he could have a drink. So obviously he said, please, sir, can I have a drink? Then technically, Mr. Little sort of said, I don't know. Can you? Because that's like saying, am I able to? And so he was saying, you need to say, please, may I have a drink? Which I thought was just a bit off because he was a young boy and he was asking nicely, he'd got the manners. And this conversation went on. And obviously the little boy he couldn't get the distinction. He didn't know the difference. And the next thing, there was a blackboard and we used to use chalk, which makes me sound so old. And we used to have a wooden blackboard rubber. So you'd write on the blackboard, rub it out. And Mr. Little threw the blackboard rubber, which was this big wooden thing, across the room. It landed against the wall, just over the boy's head. He clearly didn't mean to hit the boy's head. Well, he could have. And silence. We were all so shocked, but honestly, we were the most well-behaved children in that class because if not, it was like, oh, the blackboard rubber. But now that wouldn't happen because parents would be like, what is going on? But back in the day, teachers, yeah, they could. He actually did break another child's arm, but
He
unintentional.
broke, he broke a child's arm.
Intentional because we had this thing where I used to throw this ball, like a softball, I think, and this boy tripped over it. So actually, he was a nice man, and I think he was mortified. That means he was shocked was the teacher, and he was apologizing. So he was a nice man. It was different times. He was very strict. I don't think you had any. You seem to get on really well with your teachers. I mean, Louis, you were good at school. You were well behaved, and oh, no, but you tried, and you were good at sports as well. So I don't remember you having, any teachers that you were afraid of. Or
I was the model student, Mum. But no, I can't remember having any very, very strict teachers. Of course, there'd be teachers who would maybe raise their voice if somebody else was misbehaving to tell them off. But usually I didn't get told off. And if I did, it was just these little things, insignificant things where maybe I misbehaved slightly, but was never anything serious.
Mm.
So I was never intimidated by any teachers, and I never felt threatened by any teachers, like it seems like your class did with Mr. Little, the guy who broke somebody else's arm. That sounds pretty serious. I wasn't expecting that.
It was
Times
an
have
ac
definitely changed.
yes, it was definitely an accident.
Let it go on record. It was
Yeah,
definitely an accident.
it sounds awful, he's probably long gone now as well, but, yeah, he was a nice guy.
I'm sure he was. I'm sure he was. But yeah, he was the strictest teacher my mum's ever had.
Mm.
Now, let's skip the next question, which is the most stressful part of your job, because mum, you're retired. You don't have to worry about these things anymore.
Woo!
So from there, how about the most useful app? Mum, what is the most useful app on your phone? I think for me, it's probably Google Maps, because of course social media apps are so useful and it forms part of my day to day and my job, my life. But it's maybe not the most useful in terms of like survival. And I think Google Maps, like if I'm ever traveling anywhere, I'd be completely lost if I didn't have Google Maps. I don't think I'd be able to read a physical map. And at least with Google Maps, it will track where you're going as well. So you can orient yourself and figure out whether to turn right, left, go straight forward, or turn around. So that's what I would say. How about you?
I think actually mine's a little bit on the same theme, but mine is things like Ringo. It's the parking apps, especially because now I am going to a night school, just to brush up on my Spanish a little bit more, and just talk to other people. So it's dark. So when I go and park, I don't want to be on some side street and have to walk on my own, even though where I go is actually it's a place called Saltaire. It's a World Heritage Site. It's very nice. But if I'm walking back at 9 o'clock at night, I'm not walking down some side street that's dark. So I go to the proper car park and I've never any cash on me. I can sit in the car, I can bring up the Ringo app or whatever app it is for the parking. I can put how many hours I'm in. And I like the fact that it reminds you,
Mhm.
so if you do go somewhere and you're like, "Oh, I'll just pop into this shop," say if you're going out shopping and you just took a little bit longer or you went for a drink, you can just you don't have to go back and put cash on. You can just add on another hour on the app. So, yep, hands down, that's the most useful app I have when I'm out and about.
Perfect. Hands down, which is a nice way of saying like without doubt, without a shadow of a doubt. Hands down, it's the most useful app my mum has. Cool. How about the next one? What's the best time of day for you? For me, I'd say usually the best time of day is the moment I finish my last class. Because then, of course, I enjoy teaching, but if I've got many classes back to back, the moment you call it a day and finish work, it's always like, ah, you can breathe a sigh of relief. You can sit back, maybe have some dinner, maybe go out for a little walk, lie down on the sofa. So that's usually the best part of the day for me. Mum, how about you?
I think that's as well because you're so busy and it's back to back and you don't always get breaks. I'm what they call an early bird. So I'm an early riser. I like to get up early. I think that's the best time of the day. If I go somewhere, I don't want to waste time just lying in bed. I want to be up and out and enjoy, especially now when the weather's so beautiful. The only thing is, Dad, he's a night owl, so he likes to go to bed late. So that's not always great. Because I sometimes I just go to bed. He'll stay up and he'll have started a film. I mean, the number of times I said, "Shall we watch this?" "Oh no, I watched that." But he likes to go out during the day. He's very active with his cycling and his rock climbing. And obviously he does freelance work as well, so he's doing a lot of photography. So I think maybe that's why he's a night owl because he likes to unwind. So he can lie in bed in the morning, go and do his stuff, do whatever he wants to do. But then I think after a job or if he's been very busy, like you, he just likes to chill, to relax. So he'll just stay downstairs and maybe, bit of Netflix or whatever. So yeah, I could say we live separate lives, but we don't. We don't. We have all that time in the middle. But I'm the early bird. He's the night owl.
I mean, the same thing happens with me and my fiance as well, that I'm much more of an early bird than she is, and she's much more of a night owl than I am. And of course, whenever I'm back home staying with you guys, you can tell that I'll often go up to my room to watch a series and then go to bed an hour before my dad. And of course, I'm younger, so the normal thing would be that it would be the opposite way round. But no, no, he's happy to stay up late. And for me, I like the feeling of getting an early night's sleep. So then I feel that the next day is going to be more productive and I will have rested and, had a good night's sleep. So yeah, we are poles apart. We're very different. Now, let's do one final question. And it's a question that I think is quite interesting. But I want to begin it by saying that usually I don't remember my dreams. 9 times out of 10, I will wake up and my fiance might ask me, like, "Ah, Lewis, what did you dream about? I had this crazy dream about," and then tell this amazing story about a very creative, imaginative dream. And I'll just be like, I don't know. I don't remember. I don't remember my dream. But there are certain types of dreams that I do remember. And usually they are nightmares and a little bit traumatic. And there's one that's kind of recurring that happens maybe once every few months or once every year. And I'll be dreaming and thinking like, oh, my teeth are falling out. Or it's like my teeth are becoming loose. So it's as if I would brush my teeth the next day and then my front tooth would become loose and fall out. And I'm like, ah, no, this is like my worst nightmare. I don't want this to happen. My teeth aren't the best. They're a little bit crooked, but still, imagine losing one of your two front teeth. And this happens on a regular basis. And I looked into it before, I investigated it before, and I found out that it's quite a common nightmare for people to have. I'm not sure if it's related to anxiety or stress or something else. Beats me. I'm not sure. But, Mum, you mentioned earlier that you've also previously had this dream, right?
Yes, so it really must be quite common. And you're dreaming, you think it's real and it's like you must maybe move your tongue around your mouth and it's like, oh, my teeth have fallen out. But the relief when you wake up and you look in the mirror and it's like, oh, they're all there. And your teeth are nice teeth. You just maybe Invisalign? I don't know, but they've got lovely teeth, and it's teeth is such a personal thing as well. It's part of anything on your face. To be fair, is part of your identity. Now, my dream is more that I'm being chased. So I've been chased, but in these dreams, I'm often running away, and then bizarrely, as I run, I start to fly. And I hate flying in an aeroplane, so I don't even know where that comes from, but suddenly I can flap my arms and up I go. So, but no, my dreams aren't particularly interesting. Um, but
I mean,
hey,
that sounds pretty interesting. You're being chased by the police, maybe, and then all of a sudden you start flapping your arms as
you
if
know,
they were wings and you
I
fly
know.
away.
They just say it must be something in your subconscious that just comes to the surface as you dream. But hey, hey,
Exactly. Hopefully, I won't have this dream again. I think
no.
now maybe I'm getting used to having the dream, so then maybe it doesn't freak me out so much whilst I'm dreaming. But
Mm.
I don't know. I don't know what the psychology is behind it, but it is always a big relief when I wake up and I'm like, okay, they're all there, all good. Phew. Now, I read a piece of feedback on Spotify or maybe on YouTube a couple of weeks ago, and it was somebody who was saying that they loved these conversations, but it would be nice if I could do a little bit of a recap at the end of some of the advanced words and phrases.
Mm.
So, luckily, I'm not bad at multitasking, if I do say so myself. So, I've been quietly, sneakily writing down some of the advanced words that we've been using naturally during this conversation. So, I'm just going to do a quick review. So, the first one was tempt fate. To tempt fate is kind of like to say something, thinking that then maybe this good thing is going to end. So, I don't want to tempt fate because it's sunny and I hope it continues to be sunny. After that, scruffy. Mum mentioned that she went to this scruffy hotel for their honeymoon. Scruffy, a bit messy, a bit dirty, perhaps.
Mhm.
Then I used a nice expression which was out of sight, out of mind, which is another way of saying that if you can't see something, it's not going to bother you. It's not going to annoy you. After that, I said, Mum isn't really a movie buff, and a movie buff is someone who's really into films. So my mum isn't really a movie buff. Then Mum then said, each to their own, or to each their own also, which is basically saying everyone's different. I wasn't a fan of this film, but each to their own. I'm sure other people love it. Another one was a punchline. If you're telling a joke, then you want the punchline to be as funny as possible, which is the final word or line to hopefully make people laugh. And on this note, we mentioned that my cousin takes after my granddad. So he is similar to my granddad. I take after my mum or my dad. And another thing that I think you're aware of, but we use it a lot, is bear in mind. Bear in mind, which is like telling people, realize, take into account, don't forget. So bear in mind, blah, blah, blah. A few more things. We mentioned that Mr. Little would be mortified if he heard us talking about him now. And mortified is like very embarrassed or shocked. It's like, oh no, I was mortified. After that, a World Heritage Site is UNESCO, a beautiful place that is protected because of its cultural or historical value. And then, last two, hands down is a way of saying without a doubt. And finally, an early bird is someone who likes mornings, and a night owl is someone who likes evenings and nights. Mum, you impressed?
I am.
So that's it. Thank
Ask Glenn. You did
Pardon?
well. Who says men can't multitask? I am joking. You did so
Exactly.
good.
Point proven. We're able to do it. So thank you everybody for watching or listening. Thank you, Mum, for joining once again, and I'm glad you're feeling better. And yeah, we'll see you again in a couple of weeks.
Bye.
Bye.